The offseason program is in the books for the Seahawks as we head full steam ahead to training camp in late July. What did we learn about the Seahawks during their offseason program, and what questions do we still have that have been left unanswered? We're going to be diving in here on our Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Harang, and a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s tuning in, whether you're in Desert Air, Washington, or listening in Potomac, Virginia. We appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. The Seahawks are off for the rest of the spring into the summer as they wrapped up their offseason program with the final minicamp practice yesterday. We're going to be diving into what we learned about the Seahawks the last 3 weeks and what questions we still have that are unanswered heading towards training camp and the 2025 season. We've got a Thursday mailbag, and we'll wrap things up looking at John Schneider's remaining checklist. What are some things that need to be done between now and the start of training camp? We'll dive into all of that here in a jam-packed episode brought your way by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Now for your lead story here on our Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. It's officially the dark days of the offseason. We've got 6 weeks between the end of minicamp and the start of training camp, Rob. So we got a hiatus here until football officially returns for the 2025 season. With that said, we've gotten to see quite a bit of the Seahawks on the practice field the last few weeks as they wrapped up their offseason program. And so now the question looms, what did we learn? And some people may say, well, there hasn't been real football played, so how'd you learn anything? I'm not subscribing to that. There are definitely still things that you can learn watching practices in May and June. But we're going to be talking about what we've learned about this Seahawks team and what we still don't know heading towards the 2025 season. And as always, I give you the mic first, good sir. What is one thing that jumped out to you in the last 3 weeks that you have learned about this Seahawks team?
Well, it's very kind of you, Corbin. I appreciate that. Look, there's a lot of things that I think that this rookie class is going to be very good. I think that Sam Darnold is going to be very good. I think that Cooper Kupp is going to be very good. What I know, I know the Seahawks are going to, just focus on the running game. And I know that based on just the track record of the coaches that they brought in. I know that based on how often that they are featuring fullbacks, including I formation, in some of their offensive alignments. I know that based on what Mike Macdonald has been kind of talking about this entire offseason, what John Schneider has been talking about this entire offseason. So, yeah, Corbin, I'm not going to talk a lot in this segment about what I think. I'm going to talk about what I know. And I do believe, or I do know for a fact now, it's based on the way that the Seahawks are preparing throughout this entire offseason, that this is a club that is not going to be at the bottom of the NFL in terms of rushing attempts. I believe that they are going to be one of the more effective running offenses this upcoming season. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I think that they're going to be very effective and that they are going to be pushing for postseason play. But I know for a fact that they are absolutely going to start the season prioritizing running the football, and I haven't been able to say that for quite some time.
What I know about this Seahawks team, and I know we haven't been playing real football, but you can just tell there's eye test things that show up even in May and June. And we saw what this defense looked like the last 8 or 9 games last year. I know that this Seahawks defense is a top 3 caliber defense. I'm going to go as far as top 3, not even top 5. I just look at the continuity, the connection. They talked about this yesterday, just how connected this defense is. And that's why all these guys were coming to OTAs and minicamp. They like playing together. They want to be out there together. The continuity, having 13 of your top 14 snap guys back, you add Nick Emenwari to the mix, you add DeMarcus Lawrence to the mix, you have both those guys obviously out there for OTAs and minicamp as well, and you've got pretty much your entire defensive staff back. Everybody's used to this scheme, and just seeing the way that guys are flying all over the field, the energy, and yes, Devin Witherspoon, he is the anchor of that. That guy has energy for 15 guys, and he brings it every single day. There's not an off day for Devin Witherspoon. He's always yapping it up. He's always playing with high energy, and this entire defense follows suit with that attitude. And really, that's the word that I think is perfect here for this team. The attitude is there of a top 3 defense. And I think that is a huge component. The Legion of Boom, we know they had an attitude. You have to have this mentality and this swagger, knowing you're going to give up some plays sometimes, but you've got to have that to be a dominant defense in the league. And I think this team is just oozing that at all 3 levels. As far as what I've learned that maybe isn't as on the good side, and some are going to anticipate this not being good, but I think it was to be expected. It was anticipated this is how things are going to be. The offense, I know, is a long way away from leveling it up with this defense. I just mentioned all the continuity and the coaching staff being back. The offense has the exact opposite. You're breaking in a new starting quarterback. You've got a bunch of new receivers that have never played with this quarterback before. You've still got offensive line questions that remain unanswered. What's going to happen at tight end, running back? Can you get the run game going? We did not see this offense put many points on the board during OTAs and minicamp. At least the first team offense did not score a lot of points. And that's going to leave a lot of fans concerned. I don't even think this is a concerning development necessarily. I'm just saying here in mid-June that I know this offense is a long way away from being where Mike Macdonald's defense is at. Can they catch up by the time we get into training camp and preseason games? Absolutely. They can at least approach that. But it is year 1 in this system, and you got a lot of different pieces. So that is something that I'm not even saying I think. I know that this offense, and Mike Macdonald even hinted at, this offense, they're behind the 8 ball a little bit right now, but there's time to get this figured out when camp starts.
No, I think that's very well said. I think that very clearly the defense is ahead of the offense. You'd expect that just because of just the mindset of the head coach. The fact that there's the familiarity on the defensive side of the ball, where obviously there is an awful lot of unfamiliarity with all of the new coaches, the new skill position talent. You have new quarterback, you got new wide receivers. You may have a new tight end, Elijah Arroyo, who might be playing some wide receiver. You've got all kinds of turnover along the offensive line. It is to be expected that the defense should be ahead of the Seahawks offense. I'll kind of jump in real quick, just as far as, again, a couple of other things that I know. I know that Leonard Williams can be successful in Mike Macdonald's defense. We know that Ernest Jones can be successful in Mike Macdonald's defense. So again, there's an awful lot of things that we know that are positives. What we don't know, can Cooper Kupp be as successful in Kubiak's offense? We think we can. We think that he can. We think that Sam Darnold is going to be able to translate his success a year ago in Minnesota to Seattle's offense. We just don't know that for sure. So it is a little bit surprising to me. And one of the things I don't know is why that Mike Macdonald and the Seahawks decided to take that last day off. They had an opportunity here to kind of get their offense, a little bit more opportunity, a little bit more playing time here to kind of gel together. Clearly, the Seahawks feel comfortable with what is going on here. Clearly, they think that this is a veteran and rookie staff or rookie, group here that is going to be able to gel together quickly enough. But that's one of the things I am eager to learn and don't yet know is how quickly that Clint Kubiak's offense is going to be able to catch up with Mike Macdonald's defense.
The one thing that I don't know coming out of these OTAs, and you never know this in OTAs, O-line, running backs, those 2 position groups, we don't know how things are going to shake out with those competitions at center and right guard. You and I both have opinions on what we think is going to happen, but we don't know who's going to be starting there. And until the pads come on, we're not going to have a clear idea who's got the advantage at those 2 positions. And I think at running back, look, I still believe Damian Martinez is going to make things very interesting for a couple of those running backs ahead of him, and it is going to be an incredibly competitive group. But when you watch OTAs and minicamp, there is absolutely no way to assess running backs other than are they catching passes thrown at them. There really isn't anything else you can look at because nobody's trying to tackle them. They're playing 2-hand tap at most, and all these guys are running through the line of scrimmage, and then if they don't get touched, they just take off 50 yards. Touchdown. Nobody's trying to tackle them. So those 2 position groups, getting to the pads is going to be crucial with those 2 position groups. So as far as the biggest thing that we don't don't know yet. It revolves around that run game and the offensive line. We need to get the pads out and really get a sense where things fit at those two positional groups. And you just can't get that. You can't come close to simulating that in non-padded, non-contact practices. When we come back, we've got a bunch of mailbag questions from you, the valued listeners, that we're going to dive into. That'll be coming up next here on our Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and much more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. I've been using digital calendars for a long time, and yet my wife and I, we somehow still get our dates mixed up. The times are all messed up, whether it's a family member flying in, an appointment, work trips, you name it. We create chaos because we forget these things. But with Skylight calendars, that's no longer an issue. We've got all of our electronic calendar dates and times available on a 15-inch screen to stay focused and be less overwhelmed. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. Welcome back to the Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined here for our latest show by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in. And thank you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. It's time to open up the mailbag. We've had a busy week with the minicamp practices, the OTAs, and minicamp now in the rearview mirror. We're moving into the dead period here before training camp. Let's get to your questions, and we've got some good ones here. The first one for Rob from Elo Tato on X. When Devin Witherspoon is up for an extension, what are the odds he resets the market at the cornerback position? And do you think this affects Reek Woolen's future in Seattle with him being scheduled to be a free agent next year?
Well, I don't know that necessarily affects Tariq Woolen's contract negotiation, just because of the fact that obviously Woolen is this upcoming season and Devin Witherspoon still has 2 years to go. And that, of course, Seattle could just, bring him back on their fifth-year rookie option. So we have some time here with Devin Witherspoon. And I think, frankly, as good of a player as he is, he still needs to create more big play opportunities to justify resetting the bar at the cornerback position, as the question was just asked. So I think Devin Witherspoon is absolutely a top priority to bring back based on what we have seen over his first couple of seasons. But when you're talking about resetting the bar, then you have to be a all-pro kind of a player to be able to have that kind of a conversation. And Devin Witherspoon, as good as he is, has not quite been there yet. And in my perfect world, the Seahawks have Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon both locked up long-term. I think that this can be one of the more dynamic quarterback duos in all of the NFL. But let's not get the cart ahead of the horse just yet. Let's make sure that we have the spectacular 2025 season for both quarterbacks before we start worrying about extending them long-term.
Next question from Marcus on X. What does a good Charles Cross extension look like in your estimation? Rob, this is kind of tricky because left tackle is such a premium position, and guys who get extended there, they get really good money typically. But Charles Cross to this point has been good, not great. There's been times he's been great. He just hasn't consistently put it together to this point. And I think there's a lot of other factors at play here. Some of it has just been the circumstances around him having guys in and out of the lineup, having to try to make up for that. And also being in an offense that was very pass heavy, and it just put him in a lot of positions where he had to pass protect. So I think that there are some circumstances that can make him look a lot better. And he's only 24 still a young guy. So I don't know exactly what the accurate price point is here, but for me, I'm thinking you've got to be looking right now in that 13 to 16 million per year range. I am not going to throw him a $20 million a year contract because to me, he has not played at that level. Now, maybe you're projecting he's going to eventually, but You're going into your 4th season. You want to start seeing some of that play more consistently before you're going to be opening up the checkbook to give up that kind of money. So I would think probably that 15, 16 million is about as high as I want to go per year right now, which would be a little lower cap space value than you have on your 5th-year option. And that's assuming that you're expecting that trajectory to continue to go up. Because if you have concerns about that, I mean, you got to be careful with the money in that case. But left tackle is such a premium, important position. He's a young guy. He loves playing in Seattle. So I think they'll get it figured out. I don't know that I'm throwing top 7, top 8 tackle money at him because he hasn't played like that to this point. He's been good, not necessarily great. Cody Vett on X, what do you think the odds are Jaylen Monroe actually competes for the starting job at some point? Will he play games this season? So, Rob, dishing that question to you because I've talked about this so much. I mean, we know what Mike Macdonald thinks on this issue. He told the entire world last week what he thinks on this. But I'm curious where you stand on this because I know you always look at it from a young player's lens, being a draft evaluator.
Yeah, I think that 100% that Jaylen Monroe, that Drew Lock, and that Sam Darnold are in competition for the starting quarterback spot. But, and I want to be very clear about that. I think with all due respect, what Mike Macdonald said, he has to say that Sam Darnold, in my opinion, is the best of the 3 quarterbacks. I fully expect Sam Darnold to be Seattle starter for all 17 regular season games and quite possibly a couple of postseason games, maybe several postseason games as well. That said, if Jaylen Monroe absolutely just seizes the world by storm, then look, you can't just go into this process blind and completely loyal just to the salary cap that the contract that you signed a player to. Russell Wilson never would have got his opportunity if Pete Carroll had been blind to the fact that he was the better quarterback than Matt Flynn. Now, again, I think that Russell Wilson as a 4-year starter, it's a couple of different programs, NC State and Wisconsin, going to the Senior Bowl and excelling there, not struggling the way that Jaylen Monroe did. I do think that it was easier to envision a scenario in which Russell Wilson was going to kind of seize that opportunity, and if obviously that's exactly what happened. Do I expect Jaylen Monroe to really be the number 1 starter for the Seahawks at the quarterback position? I do not. However, I do think, and again, this goes back to what John Schneider and Mike Macdonald said right after selecting him, that they are envisioning different scenarios, different packages in which Jaylen Monroe is going to get onto the football field. And obviously, we have some concerns on the offensive line about whether or not they're going to be able to protect Sam Darnold, just from a health perspective. So I think there's an awful lot of scenarios in which Jaylen Monroe is going to be able to get some legitimate playing time. Again, I believe that Sam Darnold is going to be the starter, but at the same time, there is no NFL head coach out there who is so loyal to their starter, somebody they don't know they brought in the offseason, that if the rookie is better, that they are just going to eschew all that nonsense and play the veteran. You play the best player, that's how you win in the NFL.
And it's not unprecedented. We saw with Kirk Cousins last year in Atlanta. And Cousins struggled, and then they decided, you know what? We've got a young quarterback now. It was a top 10 pick in Michael Penix. We're talking about a late 3rd rounder in Jaylen Monroe. But I don't think this is going to be a situation where they're going to be just rushing to put Monroe into the lineup. But maybe we get into training camp and we see how this plays out when the real football starts, and maybe things get more interesting than we anticipate. Innocuous user on Blue Sky, what is the latest on Shaquille Griffin? Is that negotiation over? Well, I'm going to say this right now. If you were listening to Mike Macdonald yesterday, after practice, he made it very clear that there's still, and he was talking cornerbacks specifically, that if there's a chance to improve their roster, they're still going to be looking to do that. I don't know, and we have more chance to talk about this later in the show as well, but I don't know that the opportunity to sign a veteran corner has passed them. I think they've got plenty of other opportunities out there. If they think they want to add somebody, that they can go do that, whether it is a Shaquille Griffin or a Jair Alexander, or maybe they're looking at Rasul Douglas, one of these veteran corners that's still available that they've had interest in. I think that the door is still very much open that Seattle could make a signing on that front. Not predicting it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised either. They've already shown with the interest they've had bringing some guys in. And sometimes those signings don't actually happen until right when you get to training camp or even the first couple of days of training camp. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think the door's been shut necessarily on that potentially happening for the Seahawks this year, bringing Shaquille Griffin back for a second stint. Marion on X, do you think Christian Haynes has what it takes to be an NFL center? And if so, in this offense, what sets him up to maybe play there and be effective? We've talked about the Seahawks giving him reps there, Rob, but now it's got to look at the skill set and just a position that he really hasn't played to this point and whether or not he actually can fit there.
Yeah, and I love this question. And thank you, Miriam, as well as everybody else who has been asking questions as always. For better or for worse, I actually grade Zabel as the top center in the 2024 or 2025 draft class. Obviously, the Seahawks also liked him, and they view him better as a guard. That's why he is getting those snaps there. So there are certain attributes that I'm looking for interior offensive linemen, and can they make that adjustment to the center position? Number one, I look for durability. I look for intelligence. I look for certain size and speed factors. I look for initial quickness. I look for the ability to be able to anchor against power. I look for not only the initial quickness, but the sustained quickness. Can you get to the second level? All of those things to me are in play. I think also the ability to be a good teammate. Are you looking to help out your teammates? To me, all those things are absolutely critical at the center position. But I think that the very first thing that immediately draws my attention to interior offensive line is the intelligence. And I do believe that Gray Zabel has that. I believe that Christian Haynes has that. He demonstrated that again at the Senior Bowl, just like Gray Zabel did, and having some conversations with some of the folks at the University of Connecticut. Of course, Jim Moore Jr., former Seahawks coach, and was Christian Haynes' coach with the Huskies, the UConn Huskies. He just was so effusive in his praise about who Christian Haynes is as a person on and off the field, that yes, I do believe that Christian Haynes can play that role. I think that his body type is a little bit better suited to guard or to center than it might be to guard in a traditional wide zone blocking scheme. That said, Christian Haynes is a heck of a lot better athlete than that frame suggests. So I think that he is one of those few players that can play the guard or center position. Kudos to the Seahawks for giving him the opportunity to play both.
Our last question here coming from Aaron on Blue Sky, and this is a really good one. Do you see Jake Bobo as one of those players who lights it up in practice but can't deliver against NFL starters in regular season games? Or is there still potential for him to impact Sundays? So I have no issue with the question. I think it's a good question, but I'm going to push back on the idea that we haven't seen Jake Bobo be able to perform against guys on Sundays. 2 years ago, he made that phenomenal touchdown catch in the end zone against the Arizona Cardinals. I still don't know how he got both of his feet down in bounds. The Cincinnati Bengals game that they ended up losing in Cincinnati, if they would have just kept feeding him the ball, like Cincinnati didn't have an answer for him in that game. And then they just suddenly stopped throwing the ball to him. He just hasn't gotten enough opportunities. And I really think Ryan Grubb's offense was just not a good fit for him. In game situations, it just wasn't a great system for him. I think this system with Clint Kubiak, though, where he is going to be asked to run block, which, by the way, he's one of the best run blocking receivers in the NFL, in my opinion. Jake Bobo gets after it. This is a great system for him in that regard. They're going to be playing him in the slot. He can play the boundary. Even though he's not a speedster by any means, he is a savvy route runner that catches the football and is thrown his direction. He just needs more opportunities. So I think we've seen when Jake Bobo's actually gotten chances to make plays that he's been able to do it. We just haven't seen a lot of opportunities. And now that DK Metcalf is gone, you don't really have any big-bodied receivers on this roster. Jake Bobo can be that guy that you can throw jump balls up to, that can wall off guys, box them out, and catch the football, and he can be a possession guy. So I absolutely think he can play on Sundays, and we've seen examples of him being able to do it. It's just been fleeting, in part because they haven't utilized him very much. So I still think Bobo can be a key ingredient in this passing game, especially in an offense like this that I do think plays to his strengths better than what Ryan Grubb's system did. When we come back, we're going to be looking at John Schneider's checklist. What remains left to be done between now and the start of training camp? We're going to be diving into that checklist coming up next here on our Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team in a matchup, let's keep it rolling, Pacers, or diving into player props for teams still remaining in the playoff hunt. Whether it's Miles Turner making big plays in the fourth quarter for the Pacers or Chet Holmgren throwing down a big dunk in the paint for the Thunder, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine your live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Welcome back to the Thursday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, and thank you as always for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. We are in the dark days of the offseason. We've got about 6 weeks where there's not going to be anything going on, at least nothing that is going to be privy to us at the VMAC. There's still some OTAs next week where the rookies are just going to be doing some conditioning and maybe getting some drill work in. But pretty much the hay is in the barn heading into the start of the 2025 season. With that said, we see plenty of roster movement that still happens during this dead zone period. We see guys that make free agent visits. We see signings. Sometimes you see trades this time of year. It can be a pretty interesting time where there's not a lot going on, and then you can just have random news that breaks. And keeping that in mind, John Schneider, he's been one of those guys who can be active this time of year, particularly when it comes to extending players. We just saw Michael Dixon get his contract extension. So, Rob, now that we've got 6 weeks till the Seahawks are back on July 23rd and they get to kick off the 2025 season with training camp, it's time to dive into John Schneider's remaining checklist. And I know that you and I, maybe we have some differences, we have some similarities as well, but what we think should be on the checklist for John Schneider that needs to get done here in the next 6 weeks. I give you the mic first, good sir.
Well, again, thank you. I do think that extensions of your current players is obviously something that John Schneider has done in the past, but I'm always looking for adding additional players that I think are positions of concern. And I kind of hinted at this at the end of yesterday's show. I threw out some names there that I thought would be good fits. I do think the wide receiver, edge rusher, and maybe cornerback are all areas of concern. I am intrigued by some of the talent that is already available out there as far as street free agents, proven veterans. I also am intrigued by some of the players that are having some kind of contract squabbles with their current NFL teams, and some players who frankly are on teams that I just don't know that they fit in with the offense or defense for that matter. That is part of the new regimes, that they were drafted by one regime, a new coach and general manager come in, and maybe they are not the best fits for that particular offense or defense. I think that this is one of the areas in which a guy like John Schneider, who I think is one of the best talent evaluators in all of the NFL, Corbin, and I very much believe in the resources, the contacts that he has made throughout his time in Seattle and previously as well. That's really where his genius kind of lies and where he can be most effective. So, yeah, I think that these are the quote unquote dark days of summer for a lot of football fans. Again, I think for front office executives, these are some of the bright days of summer where the brightest minds in the league are going to be able to kind of make some of the moves. They're going to be able to help their clubs get that much further in the real season.
I'm going to get more specific with my checklist, not just with positions. I'm going to look at some players and I'm going to look at some extensions here. To me, atop the checklist, we had a mailbag question about it. I think you've got to get Charles Cross extended here before training camp starts. And Cross didn't sound like he was overly interested in that process when we talked to him after yesterday's practice. Seems like, hey, I'm focusing on this year. And that's the right thing to say. But if you're John Schneider, like, look, this is our dead time. Let's go get this done. Let's get our franchise left tackle extended while we have an opportunity to do so. That is a player that I am more than comfortable to get it done before the season. And some would say, well, you have that extra buffer now because you picked up the fifth-year option. That is true. You could wait till next year and do it. But what if Charles Cross does go out and do what you think he's going to do in John Benton's system, and he's going to break out? Well, now you got to open that checkbook up even more. I think you get this deal done here in the next few weeks. I think you make that your top priority. So that would be number one on my checklist. Number two on my checklist, you have got to find a way to supplement your edge rushing group, because I don't care if Uchenna Nwosu is going to be ready for the start of camp or not. He's missed 22 games the last 2 years, and he's now coming off of knee surgery. DeMarcus Lawrence is 33. I think he's going to be a great addition to this team, but you can't ask him to play a ton of snaps at his age. They need to get another proven commodity that they can put in there that has played in Mike Macdonald's system. Look, there's one name that I keep bringing up, and he knows Seattle because he's played there. I think Jadeveon Clowney, that's on my checklist. I'm seeing what it takes to get him to Seattle and reunite him with Mike Macdonald, who he had maybe the best season of his entire career with 2 years ago in Baltimore. I think you try to find a way to make that happen. And, of course, call the Cincinnati Bengals and see if Trey Hendrickson might be available. But I think that Jadeveon Clowney, that is the much more likely scenario, because you don't have to give up anything to trade for him. He's a free agent, and you're not looking necessarily for a starter right now. You just want another really solid rotational piece that can make impact plays for you, which Jadeveon Clowney can still do. So that would be number two on my checklist. And number three on my checklist is different than the positions that you were covering. I think Seattle can get by with the receivers they have, because I do believe Torrey Horton is going to add the speed element when he comes back healthy. My understanding is they think he's going to be fully ready to go for the start of training camp. I think the receiver position's fine. I think that the cornerback position is fine. Josh Jobe looks fantastic to me. You know, maybe you still kick the tires on a Dolphins trade for Jalen Ramsey. Maybe Jair Alexander on an incentive-based deal makes some sense, but I wouldn't be upset if that was not a top priority for them at this point because of what they've seen the last 2.5 weeks. But I think you've got to get another big body defensive tackle that has played significant snaps in the NFL. And this has been a hot spot for John Schneider to do that over the years. Go get a vet that you can plug in, they can play nose, maybe play some 3-tech for you. I just have concerns with the depth behind the first 3 or 4 players. Can you really trust Brandon Peely or Quentin Bohanna to play significant snaps for you as a rotating nose tackle? Can you count Mike Morris to come in and make impact plays? When is Riley Mills going to be back? I just think that you have to. That's got to be on your checklist right now. Can I add another proven piece of this defensive line that I have more confidence in than some of the guys that are on the roster based on what we've seen in regular season game action?
No, I think that's a very fair point. I do think that there are basically a lot of players at that defensive tackle position that are available. That would make an awful lot of sense. I don't think that it would take too much searching to find players like that. I do think that the upside that, say, a Peely might offer, or Bohannon as well, might offer. Of course, Bohannon have the familiarity under his defense and previously playing with him in Dallas. Again, I think that it is a position of concern, but I also think that it is a position where Seattle basically feels like, hey, we can just go to the grocery store and pick up another defensive tackle. Whereas a wide receiver with true game-breaking speed, that is, again, my biggest area of concern for this club. And an edge rusher, if they really feel that Uchenna Nwosu this might be it. And he is not going to be able to come back and be a very effective player, then I do think that jumps to the very top of the list. I think that the pass rush is absolutely critical to Seattle's chances of being a top 3, top 5, top 10 defense that is going to be able to power this team to the postseason. So while I do agree that on paper, defensive tackle feels, and this is kind of a weird word to use, defensive tackles, but it feels a little bit thin. At the same time, I think that there are an awful lot of opportunities out there in free agency right now, quality veterans that are available that you might be able to bring in, whereas the number of edge rushers and wide receivers is a little bit of a shorter list. And so you might have to do something more aggressive. You might have to actually make a trade to be able to acquire somebody that's going to make a difference.
As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky, Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, it's Blue Friday. We'll have our typical game day on Blue Friday and some predictions coming your way. Now that we're out of OTAs and minicamp, maybe a little bit of buy or sell or what's the odds. We'll figure it out, but we're going to have some fun with some predictions going into the 2025 season. Make sure that you're listening in and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Go Hawks.